This week on Full Circle Florida, buckle up. The Epstein files dropping. How much explosive truth actually sees the light of day? Or is this just another nothing burger overblown by the national media? Who's holding that black marker? Our legal insider, Jeremy Rosenthal, is here revealing the backstage games, the redactions, and why every trail points straight to Pam Bondi. Will the American public ever really get the full story about America's dirty little secret? Dr. Susan McManus breaks down the early legislative sprint in Tallahassee, the January kickoff with lawmakers up for re-election in 26. Will they take bold swings or will they play it safe? HOA on the chopping block, or is it? And the coming Republican civil war over your property taxes. And pure innocence with purpose. This week, we surprised a local school with hundreds of brand new books for kids who've never owned one. See their faces light up and how one book can truly rewrite a child's entire future. This is Full Circle Florida. Congress demanded it, the president signed off on it. But when these Epstein files land, will we actually see the truth or just the mirror looking right back at us? Conspiracy theorists see their monsters, loyalists see their vindication, partisans see their enemies. Is it going to be whatever you need it to be, or will it be the unfiltered facts? Same pages, a dozen different versions of America. Our legal expert this week, Jeremy Rosenthal, separates the ink from the illusion.
We have nothing to do with Epstein, the Democrats do.
The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
So the bill is about releasing unclassified records and documents from the DOJ on Epstein, but what exactly does that even cover? Are we talking flight logs, client lists, victim statements, or just some watered-down summaries? What's the real scope on how much damning information might actually drop?
This could be a very massive amount of data and information that is given to the public. It could be 50,000 pages, 100,000 pages. It could be more. And it's going to look like an amoeba. It's not really going to have a shape or a form. And what the legislation does is it lists out about 9 different sections or types of documents. And within those, there's probably a good 40 descriptions of documents that have to be given over. And that includes flight logs, travel records, manifests, itineraries, government immunity deals, plea deals, government memoranda, civil settlements, immunity deals, plea arrangements, and anything and everything that you can think of is going to be a part of this file. So that's one of the challenges, is to make sure that somebody at the Department of Justice isn't playing games with it, isn't looking at it and saying, well, nanny, it didn't say this, so we're going to withhold this document. This is a very, very broad and all-encompassing request for documents, and it's going to be hard for anybody really at the Department of Justice to deny that this was asked for.
Right. You wonder if they'll play games. I remember Bill Clinton saying it depends on what your definition of is. Redactions are going to be part of this, is what many people think. How much power does the DOJ have to actually black out names, details, or entire sections under excuses like national security, protecting victims' privacy, or even calling stuff pornographic to keep it sealed? And who is deciding that? Is it all roads lead to Pam Bondi?
Right. So the act really tries its best to deal with these things ahead of time. And yes, there's probably going to be a whole lot of redactions. But the way that those are handled is that, first off, it is very specific in this act that if the concern is embarrassment or reputational harm or political sensitivity, those are not valid reasons to redact somebody's name under this act. And not only that, if they're going to block things for legal purposes, for legal investigations, the act is very clear that that's a temporary block. Also, that the DOJ has to very narrowly construe other types of information, other types of privileges, national defense, or something like that. Also, there's a lot of information about that you're going to see redacted that says victim information, identifiable things, social security numbers, things like that. Also, pornographic images, whether that is sexual abuse images of children or adults, images of death, images of harm, those types of things can be redacted. But it's important to note, Paul, that the way that the statute deals with it is that the government has 30 days, the DOJ has 30 days to produce all of this in a PDF searchable by the public, and any redactions, they have to do their explaining within 15 days of its release. So in 45 days, they have to detail and discuss what was redacted, and they have to state why.
That's not a lot of time when you're talking about something this big and broad. If the DOJ starts censoring big time or shielding powerful names, can the House hit them with subpoenas to force full transparency? But I've actually heard that could backfire into some sort of self-investigation loophole where the DOJ just says, nah, we're good. We call the shots. How does that play out legally, and who's got the real legal leverage there?
Legally, this is an act of Congress. And in legal terms, anytime you have a specific piece of legislation, it's always going to control over a more general privilege. So the privileges that are enjoyed by the Department of Justice are also acts of law. However, this act of law is very, very specific to this one particular file. So I think the Department of Justice is going to have a really hard time hiding behind any particular rationale. They're going to have to explain why something is redacted. And yes, they could very well wind up subpoenaed by a congressional committee asking why did this happen or why did that happen, and what's this? What are these 18 pages of pure redactions? That could very well happen here.
Jeremy, I know you have had a huge career. You've seen a lot of different kind of complicated cases. What does your gut tell you? Do you think we're going to get the unvarnished, ugly truth here, or will this kind of stay half buried? And is there any mechanics of accountability here to make sure this doesn't stay a dark secret that hangs over the American public?
I think that what we're going to get is a lot of information, and we're going to get a lot of data overload here. And I think that this is the Epstein file is going to be a blank canvas, frankly, that says more about Americans than it does the Epstein file, because people are going to go and they're going to look for the villain that they hate the most to see if that villain is in the files, and then they're going to kind of run down rabbit trails and sort of see what sort of conspiracy theories are out there related to that. You would think that this information, a lot of it is extremely old and has been in the possession of the government for so long. You would think and you would hope that if there's actionable evidence and information, that whoever's in there will have already been brought to justice. But what I suspect we're going to see are a bunch of trails that might not necessarily lead anywhere specific.
I guess people will see what they want to see in this, and we'll just have to wait and see ourselves. Jeremy Rosenthal, as always, thank you for your insight. Next on Full Circle Florida, the power of reading and the investment in futures still to be written. In a time when headlines scream division and half the country can't tell fact from fiction, one truth still cuts through the noise. Words have power, and literacy is the gateway to a freedom that no one can ever take away. It all starts with a kid and a book. And this week, our Give a Child a Book campaign rolled into a Tampa school where kids who've never owned their own book got a chance to pick whatever sparked their eyes. At Legacy Preparatory Academy in Tampa, today's lesson starts with a story. What do you got there, buddy?
This.
Diary of a Pug. These are brand new books.
I got a Linky Box, and I got a Gabby. I got Bluey,
Yeah.
and I got another Gabby, and I got the Cool Bee.
And for many of these students, they're their books to take home for the very first time. What are you hoping this will spark when they come in here today?
Well, I'm hoping it will spark an interest in reading, to know that books are still important, the physical books.
So you got one Michael Jordan, who's the man in the air. Love that. Wait, who's the greatest of all time?
Probably like LeBron James.
LeBron. Wait, you got a book about Michael Jordan.
This is Huggy Wuggy, and then there's Mommy Longlegs, Kissy Missy, and different others.
I love the names. It's all part of the Scripps If You Give a Child a Book campaign, our parent company's mission to make sure that every child can experience the magic of reading, no matter their family's income. The If You Give a Child a Book campaign, thousands of books all over the country and here in Tampa Bay. Why do you think it is important to have programs like this?
Well, when we have, like in the past, where we've had the Scholastic Book Fair, some parents don't have the money. You know, they don't have the money to purchase the books, and so some kids do get left out. So I think this is a great opportunity that no child will get left behind in receiving a book.
And that is why we're joining schools like Legacy Prep to put books directly into little hands with big imaginations. Cool Bean. Now, what is that about? That looks interesting.
The cool bean is about this bean that saw all the beans that are cool, and he also want to be cool.
I make many different faces. Showtime face, starstruck face, I tooted on stage face. This is funny. He's got a sense of humor. What do you find about reading when it comes to kids at the younger age? How much of a difference does it make years down the line?
It makes a big difference because if they start reading early, it helps build the fluency in reading, which is very important.
All across the country, Scripps is taking action, giving thousands of kids like these the chance to dream bigger through reading. Because when you do give a child a book, you're really giving them a future. Can you read that line for me?
Some for the
Scouts
scouts are singing.
are singing. Nice. Good job. Next on Full Circle Florida, Dr. Susan McManus on the early legislative showdown. And which one do you care about the most? Getting a big property tax cut or putting HOAs in their place? Debate along with us next. Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring in our political analyst, Dr. Susan McManus. A lot to talk about this week, but we should talk about the session. It starts early next year, January 13th. I'm curious, does the earlier calendar sort of turbocharge the process, or does it force a sharper focus for the lawmakers, knowing they're going to have to hit the ground running in the new year?
Well, first and foremost, most of them are up for re-election.
Yeah.
So they're going to be entering that session with certain goals that they want to do because they know of issues being real important back in the district that they want to run from. But overall, one of the things that you don't want to do is to have to go into an extended session, because then the voters say, well, we sent you up there, you couldn't get the job done. So you will see some disagreement within parties, and there are certain people that think, even though they've been an incumbent, that they know that somebody's pretty strong is going to run against them. That's always on their mind. But this session is normally where both parties aim to get policies and programs in place that they can run on in November.
So no overtime this time around in
Right.
26, because they got a campaign to run. So lawmakers up for re-election, do they play it safer compared to years past on off-election years, or do they swing for the fences?
It's hard to say. We are seeing thus far a lot more examples of within the Democrats, of within the Republicans, that these incumbents are being challenged by opponents within their own parties.
Right.
So we kind of know that the primary, which is in August, may be a lot more contentious than it has been in earlier years. So we're kind of watching that. But normally, they just try to get through the session and get back on the campaign trail.
Well, there's three splits. I mean, there's a split within the Republican Party and then, of course, the Democrats. I want to talk about HOAs. Representative Porras has been pushing this bill. He says, at first he said, I want to abolish all HOAs. And then he kind of walked that back to a more practical approach of sort of scaling back their power and giving homeowners more of a voice if they run into a conflict with their homeowners association. Do you think this is going to get done, and does it have to have the governor's support to get there at the end?
Well, it will, because he has the veto power over whatever is come up with. I do expect that the all or nothing is going nowhere. And you do feel among people you talk to that live in areas governed by HOAs, there's a wide range of feeling about the HOAs.
Right.
But it's long been contentious in Florida.
The other big, doorstep issue, property taxes. Every Republican that I've spoken with, interviewed, on camera, off camera, they tell me, look, this thing is going to get done. This is their white whale, so to speak. This is what they want. The question is, how are they going to do it? And that seems to be the split between the governor and the lawmakers. Is it an all or nothing, big, huge elimination of property taxes, or just for the homesteaded properties? Do you put it on the ballot and risk that voters may not approve it at 60%? That could backfire.
Well, it could, but that's why most analysts are sort of projecting that it won't be totally getting rid of it, because already what you're seeing is local governments pointing out to everyone, property taxes fund this, and they're all basic services. So it's most likely going to be either some reduction or some exemption, but I really feel that you're going to see at least one amendment on the ballot to do something to reduce property taxes. Why? Because it consistently shows up as the top issue or top one of two issues that voters are interested in.
They got to be clear, though, about how they're going to fund, how they're going to make up for the funding if they give these huge property tax cuts. And right now, I haven't seen, the nitty-gritty detail on that.
And that, of course, will be tied to all of these DOGE studies that have been going on, where you've seen the chief financial officer going into various parts of the state and looking at their books and identifying things that they claim as waste, but even that's being, of course, challenged by the areas that say it's not waste, it's what our voters want.
I'll depart from the state politics just for a second and talk about your favorite subject, the Epstein files. I'm kidding. So Congress approved the release, but you do have a different take on this when it comes to the motivation behind why perhaps the president changed his position and why Congress wanted to get this out of the way, and it has to do with appropriations, which is money essentially for different departments?
Well, absolutely, because when the shutdown occurred, there were only 3 federal agencies that had been funded. And of course, it was Defense, Agriculture, and Veterans Affairs. So everything else that people like, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, the State Department, you name it, Department of Justice, all of those have not been funded. And so they've got to get that done because there's a deadline.
And of course, this comes in the wake of the government shutdown, and also healthcare still hanging over everyone's head. In January, we could be right back into a standoff situation again. So everyone wants this to go away. But I wanted to get your thoughts real quick on Texas. They were told by a federal judge in Texas, you're going to have to use your old congressional maps, that the new map you guys drew up there was basically racially gerrymandered. Will that impact Florida?
It very well could, because the key is going to be the Louisiana Supreme Court case that they're looking at right now, which does address the issue of whether it's constitutional to use race in redistricting. So not only could it affect what happens in Florida, but it could affect all these other states that are also planning to or have already done redistricting.
Can the Supreme Court just give a ruling on I mean, it's going to be going there at some point. Don't they have to just say this is it? This
well,
is what you...
believe me, everybody at the state and local level is really keeping their fingers crossed that yes, that they will see the urgency of it and rule quickly.
Clarity would be king. All right, Dr. McManus, hang with me 1 second. Our final thoughts when Full Circle Florida continues. Welcome back, everyone, here to Full Circle Florida. Okay, final thoughts on the week that was.
What an incredible week.
Yeah.
1 minute, everybody's on their heels, sort of toes, watching if this vote's going to take place, and all of a sudden, all 100 senators and 434 or 435 House members vote to release the files.
We don't see that often. There
Never.
was agreement, so there is that. Thanksgiving, do you even talk politics at the table at this way? You have to have a sense of humor about it.
There are so many manners books that say avoid politics, and some would add to that religion.
Yeah.
But what we're also seeing is a lot of voter fatigue with the stress of all this stuff, night and day, on your heels, on off. Let's just eat turkey and pumpkin pie and all be happy and go home and love our families.
Talk turkey, talk pumpkin pie, football.
Yes,
and then,
football.
You got Christmas coming up. You can talk holiday shopping, too. There's lots of things to talk about.
Right.
Dr. McManus, as always, such a great pleasure having you here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching us here on Full Circle Florida. Happy travels, everyone. We hope you'll join us again next week. Make sure to add our free 24/7 streaming news channel, Tampa Bay 28+. Have a great and a safe week.